All right. Happy Wednesday, everyone. Welcome to our very first Trusted Nugget today. A Trusted Nugget is a 15-minute session on just value-based free training run exclusively by members of the Trusted Buyers Club on Genius U. Each member is a leader in their chosen niche with a global digital business. So our very first speaker for our Trusted Nugget series is Michelle Clark, and Michelle is the Chief Partnerships Officer for Genius U, and she previously has also run our entire events team, our sales team. So she's got extensive experience in building value, building promotion plans, and actually making sure that all of the products have value and will deliver on those. And she is going to be sharing a 15-minute Trusted Nugget session on how to build trust at speed in the new digital era. So yeah, this is going to be an awesome session. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Michelle.
Thanks, Kathleen. Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, good evening, and those of you who are watching later on as well. If you can give me screen sharing, Kathleen, then I can share. Here we go. It's said it's disabled. There we go. All right. So this is where I'm going to be posting all my comments and links to anything that I'm going to share with you as well. So this is the Genius U Trusted Buyers Club Open Circle. It's circle number 1214. So if you all can just post in here when you're watching. This is the meme today. It's Warren Buffett saying, trust is like the air we breathe. When it's present, nobody really notices, but when it's absent, everybody notices. So you can go ahead and just let me know if you're on the call live or if you're watching it later by saying where you are from. So Michelle here, I'm in the UK in semi-lockdown. Now we are actually allowed to meet up with groups of people. So you can go on there, and this is where I'm going to be posting the links that I'm going to be sharing on this this little 15-minute session as well. All right, so let me get started. So let's kick off. All right, so this is me, Chief Partnerships Officer for Genius U. I'm also the co-creator of Talent Dynamics, and Talent Dynamics is actually the #1 business tool for building trust and flow. So I have a real passion for trust and flow, and a real passion for sharing like why it's super duper important. And here is Warren again. So I've shared his quote. He does actually share some really cool quotes on the importance of trust and how he does business with people only that he trusts, and how quick it is. How many years it can take to build trust, and it can take like 20 years to really build solid trust, and then you can lose it in like 20 minutes. So this is really crucial in terms of how do you build this trust at speed with people now in a digital era, because it's very different for those of you who now are running your businesses digitally and really trying to focus on how you connect in with your clients. I just want to share a couple of articles as well, which I will put the links in the chat afterwards as well, but just like to give you some context on the importance of trust in here. So this is an article here from Business Wire, and this is about actually the airline. So this is talking about the importance of trust, transparency to airline satisfaction grows as the industry confronts the pandemic fears, right? So this is people actually trusting the airlines more as they're spending more time. And one of the things it actually says here, like in the key findings, is that like in the post-COVID-19 era will hinge on a combination of building consumer confidence and operational flexibility, with changing their schedules and routes and having a really good reputation for safety. But it's saying one of the key findings here is that value is a key differentiator for the highest performing airlines. In the midst of the pandemic, many airlines have waived their change and cancellation fees. Like that's actually not a really big thing, right? But this is something that people have really seen as value, and it's had a notable effect on the customer perception of the ticket value. So it's helped them to see that there's more value for money. And people are seeking more transparency and details on how airlines will protect them. Improving staff scores will play an important role in recovery. Getting the basics right still matters. And there's a couple of other articles as well which are sharing kind of a similar theme. So this here is what Forbes is saying about the importance of establishing customer trust in uncertain times. And again, they're saying that customers will lean towards the companies that they can trust during these difficult times. But to gain trust, companies must show their consumers that they actually respect their time and money, and they need to create a culture that engages transparent communication. So you're hearing that again, right? So 3 things they're talking about is make sure you're being totally transparently transparent. Make sure you're listening and acting, because companies that listen to their customers will be the ones that persevere through these turbulent times. And also to make sure you're responding with speed and with clarity. So really standing out over there as well. And then I found this on the Retail Times. A quarter of 16 to 44-year-olds trust TikTok influencers' recommendation more than a friend's, right? But this is really interesting that in the last 6 months, over a quarter of consumers, 27%, have been influenced to purchase a product or service by creators on YouTube, followed by 24% of consumers on Instagram and 15% on TikTok. but 16 to 24-year-olds are the most likely to have purchased as a result of TikTok influencers, and 40% in Germany and 30% in the UK, versus the US, where 35 to 44-year-olds were most influenced. So this is kind of interesting, like the whole way that it's happening online as well. Some consumers trust influencers more than their friends. So I guess like we should all be getting on TikTok as well. And then Prospect Magazine, and this is more sort of like for people who are in the UK, but I guess this is happening in different places around the world as well, where people are seeing the importance of like making sure, again, that transparency and following the rules. And this is a story of Dominic Cummings, who is actually one of the people who helped set the rules and regulations here in the UK as one of the government's chief advisor, and then was caught out actually doing some traveling and has been upheld by the government as having not done anything wrong, but has caused quite a furore here in the UK. So are people willing to trust in the government? And then this is the Edelman Trust Barometer. So, and this is like super cool. So if you're not following Edelman, I highly recommend you do, because they actually over the last 20 years have been running the Trust Barometer. And this they do across all countries. So they just have announced their spring Trust Barometer, which they've compared to like their January one. So it's really interesting to see the difference and what they're saying here. And they cover quite a few different areas. I'm not going to go through this entire feedback, so I won't have time, but I want to focus on the sort of a couple of key bits, and mostly on the business side. But you can see here, so there's 13,200 respondents in total from, it's an online survey across 11 different markets. So it's not like everywhere, but it covers 11 markets, and they compare it with the previous ones they've done as well. Some of the key things here, trust is at an all-time high. Like, this is really interesting. So a record rise in trust, and a trust index at an all-time high. So you can see the countries here in blue have got high levels of trust. You can see in gray, they're the ones who have like a neutral level of trust. And then the ones in red are at a distrust. And you can see the difference in the countries here. The left side is January 2020. The right side is May 2020. So there's quite a few countries that now have like, just generally have like got a higher level of trust, which is a good thing. And then you see some more information around trust inequality. This is interesting, record highs for all institutions. The government, for the first time ever, has become the most trusted institution. This is the first time this has happened, right? This is across these countries. They've had a 10-point increase from January through to May. Business has had a bit of an increase as well. NGOs has had an increase. Media is kind of neutral. And then they talk about sustainable rise, or is there a trust bubble? Because large gains in trust can often be quickly lost. So maybe like where there is a high rise in the government, there could also be a quick loss as well. So you can see, here's some examples of where they've shown the trust loss 1 year after a double-digit gain. So it's like those markets that have really gained in one of the Edelman measures have then like massively dropped later on. So what I want to draw your attention to specifically is here on the business side, the things that they're showing on the business side. So in the slides here, it actually talks about the moment of reckoning for business. And there's a couple of slides I picked out here. So this one's really interesting, which is CEOs failing to demonstrate the expected public leadership. So this is CEOs should take the lead on addressing the pandemic rather than waiting for the government to impose restrictions and demands on their business. 65% of people think that, and they think, and this is the percent who say that each are doing an outstanding job of meeting the demands placed on them by the pandemic. So academics and scientists is like 53%. You've got national government leaders, 47%. His CEOs, which is ranked the smallest at 29%. So only 29% think they're doing an outstanding job of meeting the demands placed on them by the pandemic. And then they go into sort of a bit more detail here and say that businesses are not seen as looking out for their employees or for their business partners. So percent who say business is performing well or very well on each. So 38% think that businesses are doing well on putting people before profits. That's really low. That's really bad. So basically people are saying that they don't trust CEOs and businesses to be putting people before profits, right? Which is not cool. Only 39% think that businesses are protecting their employees' financial well-being and safeguarding their jobs. And only 38% think that they're helping smaller suppliers and smaller businesses to stay in business by extending them credit or giving them more time to pay. So this is one of the things that has led to like the distrust in business and CEOs. And then they're saying to increase trust, businesses must join the fight against the pandemic. And the percent who indicate that the below actions will maintain or increase their trust in businesses. So if companies actually do this, then more people will actually like trust them. So if they donate needed equipment, like it'll be an increase of like 39 here to 67%. If they collaborate more with the competitors, if they switch their production from what they're currently making and start helping make things that are actually needed as part of the pandemic. And if they redefine their company's purpose and goals around the mission of fighting this pandemic. So consumers are really looking to businesses right now and criticizing them for not actually being there on trust. So let's talk about like what some of the key things are you can do to make sure you can really build trust at speed. So the first thing is trust is measured in how much value you deliver. This is really, really important. The more value that you deliver, the higher the level of trust that people will have in you. And of course, value is measured in what people think is of value to them. But the higher the level of trust they have in you, the more they will actually spend with you. When the crisis actually started, we started just delivering free value straight away. We set up some webinars on the which we called the kind of crisis webinars. We turned that into a series eventually. We were doing one a week at one point in March, and then we sort of dropped to one a fortnight. Typically, before the crisis occurred, we would have had maybe 1,000 people signing up to our webinars. At the height, we had 12,000 people on one webinar, and we had 20,000 people just join our crisis leadership series. And the reason being is because we were a place where we were delivering lots of value. So we were actually sharing with people like what's going on right now in the world, what they can do around their business, and what they can do to actually turn their business around. And as well as giving them advice, we were sharing real stories of where we've seen this happening as well. So people perceive that as value because it's something they can actually use, and it gives them some instructions they can take as well. So make sure you're thinking about like where you're actually delivering this value. Here's one webinar we did, which was a webinar about the coming crash. This was a webinar which was specifically about like, you know, what you should be doing with your investment money, how you should make sure that your cash is safe. As a result of the content that was just delivered on here, in terms of like what's going to happen with currency, what's going to happen with the global markets, we actually invited people to have a conversation with our team on some of the investments that we were doing, and we raised $1.8 million in 2 weeks, which is absolutely phenomenal. So there's a direct correlation between delivering value, people trusting you, and then it generating revenue. So my first question to all of you, and you can put a little comment in the chat here as to like what you think is like the important answer as well, is what is it that you could be doing right now digitally to really be adding value to your community? What are some things you can be doing like a Trusted Nugget or something else where you could be sharing something of real value with other people, which is not about necessarily trying to get people to buy your products, because that's not what people are looking for right now. They're looking for to see that you are actually delivering value and you're really thinking about what their biggest problems are right now during the pandemic. The second thing is it's easier and quicker for you to build trust using your natural talent. And what I mean by that is your natural talent is where you will always deliver the most value naturally. Those of you who are obviously on Genius U will know about the Genius test, because the Genius test actually measures what is your natural talent, where do you deliver the most value naturally. Now, if you're a dynamo genius, where you deliver the most value is by being super creative, coming up with big, bold ideas, creating great strategies, creating new products and services, getting things started. Where you're least likely to deliver value is getting things finished and actually making things get done on time as well. So it's always the opposite of where we're most trusted is where we're least trusted. Many of us spend our whole lives trying to figure out how to build trust in the areas that are not our natural talent. It's the opposite of what you should be doing. Really focus at where you do deliver value and then bring people into your team who don't. Blazes, where they naturally deliver the most value and create trust, is through people. It's through connecting with people. It's through building teams. It's through building community. Where they're generally least trusted is when it comes to details and data and analysis of information. Tempo geniuses, where they're generally most trusted is when it comes to taking care of customers, looking after the service, making sure that the delivery is taken care of, making sure that the customer are actually getting exactly everything that they've been looking for, and making sure that the timing is done so that we actually hit our schedule and hit our milestones. Typically, they're least trusted to be very creative and very strategic and come up with a big, bold idea or plan. And then the steel geniuses, where they're most trusted is their ability to analyze information, to understand how the data works, to really dot the I's and cross the T's and make sure that everything has been really thought through and taken, the details have been really, really well taken care of. They're very good at analyzing information and data. Typically, they're not going to be so well trusted when it comes to leading teams and inspiring others. So just even knowing that, and if you haven't taken the Genius test yet, go do that, because just by even knowing that, it gets you to focus your time and your energy in the area where you can deliver the most trust naturally. By the way, your team also has a genius and your company also has a genius. And that's based on like the people within your team. So each company has its own genius as well. And so each company has a natural strength and a natural talent. So my second question to you that you can be posting there is, what is your natural talent? And how could you be using your natural talent to deliver more value? So don't try and deliver value in the area that's not your natural talent, but what could you specifically be doing right now where you could be sharing with others and helping to solve their problem using your natural talent? The third thing I want to share is that trust is a currency. You know, when the economies begin to collapse, when we find that, you know, we're dropping the value of the pound and the US dollar, and when people are struggling with money and wondering like about the value of the money that's actually in their bank account, it won't be about the money that's left in your bank account. It'll be about the value that is left in your trust account. So think of trust as a currency. Think of it in the same way that you would be building the money in your bank account. Think about how you can be building the trust in your trust account. What do you actually need to do that? And trust is something that is built over time. The more you do this, the more you play the game of building trust, the more trust you'll have in your account. And as Warren Buffett said, you can take a long time to build it, but you can lose it very quickly. So really focus at making sure you're being consistent with everything you're doing. And this is a really important principle here. The more value that you add, the more you will build trust with your market. There's a direct correlation between people trusting you and people purchasing from you. There's a direct correlation. So just remember this, it's a really important principle. If you want to generate more revenue, you don't go out and make more sales. Most people are thinking, why are people not buying my product today? It's not because you're not good at selling. It's not because you haven't got a good product, but it's thinking through in a different way is, how can I add more value? As long as you're thinking about how you can make more sales, you're at the wrong end of the equation. The minute you start thinking about how do you add more value and therefore build more trust with people in your market, people will naturally gravitate to you. And like I shared, you know, $1.8 million of investment made in 2 weeks was because of the level of trust people have in us and because of the amount of value that we're consistently delivering. Now, on the converse side, when you reduce the value that you deliver, you reduce your place in the market. So be consistent with the delivery of the value. You know, don't start something and stop it. Keep doing it. Keep adding value. Keep finding ways to add value to people in your marketplace. Your revenues are a direct result of that value. Your revenues are a direct result of that amount of value. So more people trust you, the more they'll actually come and spend with you. So really think about that. Now, it could be in your marketplace, it could be in your local community, wherever it is that you're trading, really think through how you want to be building that trust there. And a nice simple question to ask you right now to be thinking about in terms of how you add value is, what's the biggest problem you could solve for your customer that would be of the biggest value to them today? And if you don't know the answer to that, go and speak to some of your customers. You'll build trust even by going and speaking to them and finding out what their biggest issue is that you can be solving. But the minute you know what their problem is, you can find a way to add value using your natural talent, using your natural strength, and be consistent in that delivery. And as my good friend Stephen Covey says, trust is the new currency of our interdependent collaborative world. And on that, I think I'm already over time. So I'm going to finish my session. There you go. That was my trusted nugget.
Thank you so much, Michelle. That was super high value. I'm sure everyone got a lot of value from that. And for anyone that is curious about what the Trusted Buyers Club is, if you're joining us from outside of the Trusted Buyers Club, we will have a link in the comments linking you to where you can find out more about the Trusted Buyers Club and how we are growing our community of trust through both learning and also trading with one another using Genie Coin on Genius U. So thank you everyone for joining us, and we will see you for the next Trusted Nugget, which will be scheduled in this circle, the Open Trusted Buyers Club circle, as well as the private Trusted Buyers Club circle for our TBC members. And have a great rest of your week, everyone. Bye.
See you next time. Bye.